Hi everyone, and welcome to Comics and the Graphic Novel, aka English 218, here at Haskell Nations University. So I'm Dr. Joseph Rodriguez, and I will be your instructor for this semester, the next 16 weeks or so. So first of all, this is an online asynchronous course. This means obviously we're not meeting in person, but it also means specifically it's asynchronous, which means that we don't have a set meeting time where we meet via Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate or anything like that. Instead, content I'll upload, specifically videos, but also readings, things like that. You'll work through them at your own pace for the most part, and then assignments, you'll complete those on your end. I say at your own pace, you'll still want to generally keep up with the course. You don't want to leave it all till the end. I've had folks do that, and it's usually a mistake. But specifically, you don't have to be at a specific time and or place for this course. So if the time you have to devote to it is, at 2 in the morning, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. You can do your work at 2 in the morning and reading at 2 in the morning if that's what you want to do. So, as I mentioned, I'm Dr. Joseph Rodriguez. I will be available by appointment via Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate, any of those other video chat services. So if you want to meet with me, just let me know and we can easily set up a meeting. If you are on campus, even if though this is an online class, you can also feel free to meet with me in my office, which is in 142 Ross Hall. But otherwise, your best way of communicating with me is going to be via my email, which is jrodriguez@haskell.edu. And this info is all on the syllabus as well. I haven't listed a phone number on the syllabus because I currently don't really have one. Our building, Ross Hall, has recently been undergoing some major renovation, and things are not all fully back in place yet. And one of the things that is not in place is all of our phones. So I do have a phone number. It's on the Haskell website in the directory. Don't call it because I won't get it. So email me and you should be set. So this course is, like I mentioned, Comics and the Graphic Novel, or Comics and Graphic Novels. I've kind of seen it. It's listed both ways in different places. So this course will focus on the study of comics as a kind of literary medium. So this is an English class. We're going to look at it as literature, but also keep in mind that in English we do also consider things like comics and as literature. A text can be anything from comics to a TV show to a pop song. It doesn't just have to be, great literature, capital G, capital L. Obviously we do teach things like Shakespeare and Jane Austen, but we also teach a lot of other things beyond that. And this course is one of the prime examples of that, because we'll be doing a lot of looking at comics. So, in this course, you'll be kind of exploring and learning the terms and the visual language of the comics medium. We'll also be talking quite a bit about the process of producing comics in preparation for one of your options for the final assignment for this course is going to be to create your own comic. So obviously we'll be reading a lot of comics of different kinds over the course of this semester. Our readings will be drawn from different genres, periods, areas of comics and graphic novels. So obviously we're looking at the classic superhero comics that a lot of people think of when they hear the word comic book. We'll also be looking at more recent indie comics to autobiographical comics, like true crime comics, like international comics, like Japanese manga or Franco-Belgian bande dessinée. Also be talking some about comics adjacent media, like adaptations of comics into movies and TV shows and such, which there's obviously been a lot of recently. So those are the kinds of things that we'll be talking about in this course, like the history of comics, how it comes to where it comes to now, and the different kinds and areas and ways in which comics from different times and places and genres differ. So, our course objectives and learning outcomes, the things hopefully you'll come out of this course knowing how to do, or having knowledge of. Terminology and visual language of comics. Being able to identify what these concepts are, what they're called, how they're used. knowledge of the history of comics as a medium and how it's kind of changed and developed over the course of its existence. Knowledge of the comics creation process and how it varies by genre and culture. American superhero comics are made very, very differently from, say, Japanese manga. And as with all of our English classes, you'll also get some level of skill development when it comes to analysis, research, and writing composition. So, this is a reading-heavy course. Obviously, the readings are comics, so hopefully they're a little more pleasant and maybe not quite as dense as some more traditional texts might be, but nevertheless it is still a decent amount of reading. So you'll want to make sure, this is asynchronous, so you can complete your work at your own pace and at a time that is convenient to you. The only real deadlines we'll have for things will be the end of the semester, but you do have to complete it all by the end of the semester. That's kind of a put up or shut up deadline. So do try to keep up with the course schedule generally, rather than waiting until the end of the course to complete everything, because you do not want to get to, early May and realize you have a week to do everything for the entire semester's worth of the course. So, we have a bunch of different textbooks and texts that we're using. You should hopefully be able to purchase those through your the textbook vouchers, I believe, that you should have received through the library. Our textbooks include Native American Classics, which is a kind of set of classic early Native American lit, basically through the early 19th century, reimagined into comics form, and for all the stories, either the artist or the writer or both are native. Then we have Will Eisner's A Contract with God and Other Tenement Stories, Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, Frank Miller, Klaus Johnson, and Lynn Varley's Batman The Dark Knight Returns, Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, Marjan Satrapi's The Complete Persepolis, Aragon Starr's Super Indian Volume 1, and Akira Toriyama's Dragon Ball Volume 1. So those are the actual books you should be purchasing with these vouchers you should have received. We will have some other shorter readings, but they'll be available digitally through our Blackboard site in PDF format. So, this is an online asynchronous class, so you will need reliable, regular computer and internet access to complete it. So, if you don't have that, you may want to consider not taking this course. You will need regular access to Blackboard, regular access probably to your Haskell email as well, but definitely regular access to Blackboard and the internet. You should hopefully already be in our Blackboard course, since that's presumably how you're getting to this video. Any immediately important info will be posted as an announcement. A notification of that will also go to whatever email you have registered with Blackboard. And that may be, I think by default, it's your Haskell email. But if you change that to a personal email, then it may go there instead. Everything else should be easily accessible from the main course page that you get to via content. There'll be links at the top for our gradebook, discussions, and the discussions also show up in the main content page. Everything else, readings, syllabus, discussion topics, video links, all that stuff is going to be in the main sort of content feed. We will also be doing a class blog this semester, which will also require internet access, of course. And I'll give you more information on that as we get close to the time. And obviously, finally, on the technology needs front, you have the option for your final project of working to produce your own graphic narrative, which you may or may not decide to do using computers. So if you do decide to do something computery with it, you may want to use them for that. Okay, so how is your grade going to be determined in this class? 20% will be participation, which is going to involve specifically our discussions that we have based around our sort of readings and around our videos. You'll do 3 graphic responses over the course of this semester, which will be 15% of your grade, 5% for each of those. I will talk more in detail about those probably next week, I think. Then you'll do a class blog. That'll be 30% of your grade. Basically, I'll put together a blog. You'll all be contributing to that blog as contributors. And each of you will make 2 blog posts over the course of the semester. and then you'll do 4 blog responses to your Class A's posts. The 2 blog posts are going to be worth 10% each. The blog responses are going to be worth 2.5% each. And finally, there is the final assignment, which is going to be either a sort of an essay, or a traditional kind of essay about some aspect of comics or comics-related media, or a comic yourself, some kind of graphic narrative that is, and we'll talk about kind of what the definition of comics is and what fits in that definition and not. So, but basically, as long as it involves images in some way, and as long as those images are in sequence in some way, like the sequence is telling a story, then kind of whatever you want to do for that assignment will work. So you can definitely get creative with it if you'd like to. Again, we're not going to go into a ton of detail about these assignments until we get a little closer to the time. But again, just keep in mind, I will accept late work with no grade penalty, but don't leave it all your work till the end. Other things to keep in mind, the reading expectations. You will want to complete the reading and or video for each week before you participate in whatever the discussion post for that week is, or whatever is corresponding to that reading. If you have questions or thoughts after reading the text, if you're drawing connections with that text and other texts you've read or your personal experiences, those can be great contributions to discussion. Obviously, I'll give you a bunch of discussion questions to prompt, so although you're not limited to using those questions, to answering those questions, certainly that'll give you maybe a good place to start if you're having problems coming up with something to say about it. My plagiarism policy, the short version is do not plagiarize. Your assignments are expected to be primarily your own work, showing your own ideas, and if you don't do those things, if you're using other people's words or ideas without crediting them, then that's going to be plagiarism. Yes, ideas does mean that if you are paraphrasing someone else's idea in your own words, you still need to give the original author credit for their idea. I have a very zero tolerance policy on plagiarism due to long experience. So do not plagiarize because the first time you do, you will get an F in the class. So don't do it. Plagiarism often comes from a place of panic. So if you find yourself feeling like you're becoming a little too tempting, talk to me, email me, let me know. I would much rather get something that's late and yours rather than something that is stolen and on time. And again, like I said, I'm really leaning on deadlines. This is not really the only real deadline is the end of the semester. So you've got time to do the things you need to do. So you will want to make sure you do those things yourself. As far as our course schedule, it's available in our syllabus, which is on Blackboard. But for the most part, I've set it up by week. Sometimes we'll do things like divided, like one thing in the first half of the week and another in the second half of the week. For others, we'll just straight have just one thing for the entire week. So, again, pretty straightforward if you look at it on the website. All of our readings are either in that list of things that you should be purchasing using that voucher, or they'll be available in Blackboard in PDF format. But basically, later this week, I'll put up a video on basic comics terminology, just so we have some shared vocabulary that we can use to talk about things. Then we'll be going through history of comics, how to analyze comics, defining what comics are and the comics form, some more of the vocabulary that we use to talk about comics. We'll be looking at native lit comics, superhero comics, going from the golden age through more modern times. We're looking at autobiographical comics, Japanese manga, and then we'll have a kind of 2-week unit on Batman, on The Dark Knight Returns. And then we'll end with Super Indian, which is a native created webcomic to kind of bookend with the Native American classics. And then Scott Pilgrim, which is an indie Canadian comic that hit it big enough that obviously they made a movie of it if you're familiar with the movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So those are kind of the things we'll be doing over the course of the semester. For the most part, I would say schedule-wise, as long as you're keeping up with things, you should be fine. The one thing I would keep in mind is that that end of semester deadline for things is going to be a hard and fast deadline. So just because I have to have time to then grade things before I have to turn in grades for my deadline. So definitely do not leave everything until the end. I'll just kind of emphasize that. Again, all of our deadlines for the graphic responses and the blog posts are on Blackboard on the syllabus. So you can look at that and kind of get an idea as far as how you're going to want to plan things out. And that's pretty much it for our syllabus. Obviously, there's things I've had to gloss over. Policies you'll probably want to look at for things like, if you need accommodations for a disability, the procedure for that is on the syllabus. And obviously I go into more depth in detail on some things like assignments and workload per credit hour and such. So definitely look at the syllabus, take some time. But what I'd like you to do now is get your syllabus, look at the syllabus, and then post to our introduction post that we've got up on our Blackboard site. I realize we're not going to be meeting in person, which kind of sucks. I was kind of originally hoping to do this course in person, which I had scheduled last semester, and it fell through, in part I think due to Haskell's current housing policy, where only incoming freshmen, graduating seniors, and athletes were allowed to stay in on-campus housing. Since this course does appeal to a lot of sophomores and juniors who were not necessarily getting that opportunity. So it fell through last semester. I'm doing it again this semester, but I'm doing it online, and we did in fact get enough of you to make it happen. So yay for the course, getting to go forward. But it is a little shame because I do prefer to teach this in person. But nevertheless, hopefully you'll still find it really helpful and useful and interesting and entertaining, even in online form. So I'd like you to introduce yourself in that introduction topic, and look at the syllabus. And later in the week, I'll be uploading a video that just kind of introduces us to some really basic comics terms, just so that we can kind of have a set of shared vocabulary to talk about these things throughout the rest of the semester. So that is pretty much it for this video. And I will see you all in the next video. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to get back with you. So otherwise, I will see you for our video on some kind of basic terminology of comics.